Welcome to Cookies Enabled, everybody. I am Will, your host, and today we are actually talking about a new topic that was brought to my attention via a comment in a previous video. Thanks to Adam T, we are talking about the Ogallala Aquifer and how quickly it is being drained. So stick around and let's learn something new together. So I want to give a big shout out to Adam T. Thank you again for your comment and for bringing the Ogallala Aquifer to our attention and how quickly it is drying up. Now, Adam also stated in his comment that there isn't a lot of media attention based on the Ogallala Aquifer. And I was actually kind of surprised. He is correct. There is not a lot of mainstream news. You're not going to see this on your nightly newscast with NBC or ABC or anything like that. But your local newscast, if you're in that area, may be talking about it. I was able to find a good chunk of articles online floating around talking about how the dangers of this situation. But again, they were not hit on by mainstream media, unfortunately. So Adam, here you go. This one's for you. So let's take a step back here and let's really analyze what the Ogallala Aquifer actually is and what's really going on here. So the Ogallala Aquifer is one of the largest in the world at 174,000 square miles, and it covers over 8 states, which include South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. So the aquifer is made of sand, silt, clay, and gravel, depending on where you're digging, and it is located specifically in the Great Plains in the United States. Now, after the 1950s, it was supplying drinking water for more than 2.3 million people, and actually way more than that since that number was actually from 1995. So it may have actually doubled to about maybe closer to 4 million people that supply drinking water now. But 27% of the irrigated land in the United States lies directly on top of this aquifer, which is very important. Now, the farmers that do use water from this aquifer use 90 to 94% of the water in the aquifer just for their irrigation systems. Those same farms output 30% of U.S. supply of wheat, corn, cotton, and cattle that is eaten. Aside from being used for irrigation and drinking water, it is also used for commercial use, but this only accounts for about 1 to 3% of the water use from the aquifer, so it's really not an issue. Now, 13.6 million acres of land in the Ogallala region is irrigation only. Here is a state-by-state breakdown. So Nebraska leads the pack with 46% of land contributed just to irrigation. Then Texas at 30%, Kansas at 14%, and that brings a total of $35 billion in agricultural products. Wow. Now we understand how the aquifer is used and definitely how important it is, not just to the US economy, but the world economy. So let's talk about how it is being depleted and why the recharge isn't enough to keep it going much longer. Okay, in the 1940s and the 1950s, we saw a massive explosion of agricultural development over those 8 states, mainly because of the aquifer, and they all started using the aquifer for their irrigation systems, which today has led to a decline in over 100 feet in the aquifers in Kansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and in Texas, unfortunately. So groundwater mining also started in the 80s and early 90s in those areas, and that has attributed to 2 to 3 feet of water deduction from the aquifer per year, which is a lot. Now, at the current rate of extraction and recharge to the aquifer, it's estimated to be gone as soon as 2042 if no restrictions have been put in place, and could last all the way past 2099 if those restrictions are not only put in place, but held up by the farmers and the actual irrigation systems. So we'll see. Ogallala is also an unconfined aquifer. Now, that means that no streams directly feed into it, either on the surface of the ground or underground, to feed or recharge the aquifer. Now, this means that it only uses rain and snow melt to completely recharge it. And unfortunately, depending on the soil type and the area that you're in, this can only attribute to maybe 1 to 2 inches of rain added to the aquifer each year, which is not very much. So with most of the water being used in agricultural development as well as irrigation systems, this means that instead of it going back to the aquifers like they're expecting it to, it's either on your dinner table in the form of meat or vegetables and or fruit, or it evaporated right from the soil when the farmer tills the ground after they're done with their particular yield. So some of the pesticides and insecticides from those plants also get washed directly onto the ground, and some of them make it all the way into the aquifer, which has been slowly polluting the aquifer very little by little, year by year. So between the year 1900 and 2000, over 89 trillion gallons of water were drained from the aquifer, and that's the same as 2/3 of Lake Erie. Wow. There was also a mega-drought in the area that has been lingering for some time in those listed states and has only increased the use from the aquifers, like Texas, where it is unregulated how much water they can pull from the aquifer. As long as they've got a well and it's in Texas, they can pull as much water out of that well as they want. Now, in some states like Kansas and Nebraska, they started imposing not only limits, but bonus checks for farmers that found ways to not only conserve water, but use less water than the previous year. Bonus! So with a mega drought in the area and 90% of the water being used for agricultural development as well as irrigation, what can be done, if anything, to save the world's largest aquifer? Well, stick around. I might have some answers for you. So, what can be done to fix the Ogallala Aquifer and keep one of Earth's largest aquifers alive? Well, teamwork is actually the answer here. Not only with the companies, but governments, local and federal, as well as technology with the farmers, all needs to be upgraded and scaled up quickly, or this is not going to work. Now, some technology companies like Microsoft have already been helping farmers for the last decade or so not only become more efficient, but create more yields from their planted fruits or vegetables or whatever they're trying to grow, as well as using less water. And they do this by putting little trackers on every plant that go about 1.5 feet down into the ground and are near the plant enough to not only track sunlight, but keep track of bugs, moisture, nutrition levels, and all other kinds of things that are going on in the soil and above the soil to help keep track of how the plant is growing and see if it maybe needs more nutrition, more water, less light, more light, something like that. And voila, now you're able to grow your plants not only faster, but they'll have higher yields and they'll use less water, less fertilizers, and less pesticides in the end. So state governments really need to start incentivizing the farmers who are trying to find new sources of water other than the aquifer. And some have already started to do this, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, but really this needs to happen with technology as well. They need to be giving out subsidies to these farmers to help them upgrade their technologies and whatnot and equipment on their properties to keep them in the now and allow them to use less water so that way they don't have to contribute to tilling as well, which leads to evaporation of water trapped in the ground. So very key there. Now, the federal government definitely needs to step up here and start pulling some tax subsidies off of the farmers as well. Again, so that way when they do upgrade all that equipment, they're not having to spend tons of money on taxes just to get it. They also need grants to farmers who need more money upgrading their equipment, as well as getting these systems started is not cheap. So definitely having some kind of grant situation there to get things flowing for those people would definitely help the situation. GMO foods now have been around for over 30 years and show little to no evidence they cause any long-term issues with humans. And now this could be the time to switch back to GMO, since GMO plants use 1/3 less water than their counterpart plants, and they can not only grow larger amounts of food in hotter climates, but again, are going to use less water to do it, and usually less time as well. Now, robots can also be added, as well as artificial intelligence, or AI, to the field. And I've already kind of mentioned this as well with Microsoft. Using their Azure cloud system can actually help keep track of the robots and drones that you can release over your farm to not only release pesticides, but keep birds at bay and certain insects that you do want on the plants while keeping other ones off. And that is pretty cool, as well as super helpful. Now, there's tons of other systems out there that you can get as a farmer that'll help you with this. Not only do they plant seeds, but they can weed around the crops for you, collect the crops, spray insecticides, and do tons more pretty much without any human assistance, just using GPS and camera systems and maybe a little bit of a map from the farmer, and voila, they do the rest. Now, these solutions, as well as injecting air into the unsaturated zone below or around the aquifer, can help release and push air or water from the unsaturated zone into a saturated zone, which means it can become drinkable water. Now, this has only been tested in very small select areas, and it has proven to be successful, but maybe it's time to bring this to a larger scale and start seeing if we can start refilling aquifers around the world without really having to do too much extra work. Now, if I missed any ideas, or if you guys have heard of anything else that could definitely help with the situation, please drop it in the comment section below, and maybe I'll do another video describing other ways that we can solve these issues in the future. Okay, everybody, if we really want to save the Ogallala Aquifer, as well as save a $35 billion agricultural industry, and one of the world's largest aquifers at that, then farmers and several states will gonna have to make a very hard decision and try to use some new technologies to help solve this water crisis and put this whole drought behind us completely. Thanks to Adam again for your awesome comment and for giving us this amazing video. And thanks to you all for watching all the way to the end. Don't forget, there's bloopers right after the credits here. And I know I learned something new, and I hope you guys did too. Tune in next week for another fun episode on Monday at noon, and check our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as Reddit pages for more. And see you all next time. Have a great one. Today, how is everybody doing? Woo woo, oh yeah, looking, sounding great. I don't know. And today we are just not discovering anything. Oh, kitty. We are talking about a new topic. Man, I keep screwing this up. This week is the Ogallala Aquifer. Wow, I screwed that up already. In the world, and it's Thanks, kitty. God, you're hilarious. It's got a flashing light on it. She's like, ah! After the 1950s, my cat decided to attack everything and go Godzilla on my set. Celine, could you please not? Daddy's busy, hon. Can you get you good girl? Okay, thank you. My goodness. In water from groundwater mining. Wow, I'm screwing this up. In the soil that has been tilled, and I keep screwing this up every time. To fix this Ogallala Aquifer, and why I keep screwing up the name. Celine, what are you doing? You trying to get back out now? Just go around, honey. Oh, dear Lord.